Growing up, I had a real love for God. Back in Kokwani, back in Guyana, church was something that was very central to my community. And when I moved to the States, I never felt the need to engage in drugs or weed or alcohol or anything of that nature. Sex, anything, right? I truly believed in purity, saving yourself for marriage. I completely believed all of that. And when I moved to the States, although I didn't engage in drugs or alcohol or anything like that, sex was just a completely different animal. And unfortunately, I lost my virginity at a very young age. But nevertheless, I would always try to find my way back to the straight and narrow. And I was a member of youth meetings. So I would go every Sundays, and there was 3 reasons why I decided to leave the church. I just knew that I didn't want to be here anymore. The first reason was one youth service. One of the leaders, she was so impressed with my worship. She was so impressed with the way that I was devoted to God and the Bible and to all of those things that she asked me to give a testimony. And I spoke about how flawed I was. I spoke about how I was struggling with corn. We'll say corn for the algorithm. And I was struggling with all of that stuff on the internet. And I am not perfect. And for me to get up on stage in such a vulnerable state and to share that, and then to have members of the congregation, some including leaders, snarkling and laughing, that completely took me by surprise, because I was just not expecting that. And I guess I was just not expecting that to be the reception to what I was saying. And especially being that in Romans 5:12 says, thus therefore through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, and thus all men are born of sin. I expected that no one would be casting stones, especially when we all got stuff in our closet. The more crushing fact was that stones were being cast by my people, the one that were supposed to be the most understanding. And I find it ironic that I looked up a stat the other day, and one of the main reasons why people leave the church is because of people in the church. So I guess that was kind of my experience as well. Reason number 2, there was a youth leader that I admired this guy. I really, really looked up to this guy. He was, fit guy, very charismatic, very outspoken, good looking brother. One of the things that I admired most about him was that he was a virgin. He was pure. And that had really meant a lot to me. And I really looked up to him. I really respected him. And I don't know how it happened. I guess maybe someone found out or whatever, but he got on stage, and he had a confession for everyone in the meeting. And, turns out Buddy was piping the whole time. Man, did that annoy me. Man, I don't know why I took it so personally, but I felt so betrayed. And it was one of those things that it was like, man, I can't even describe the feeling that I felt when I found that out. It was devastating, because I really looked up to him, and I really thought he was like just the model citizen, and it was a lie the whole time. It just it was the hypocrisy for me. And one of and it wasn't just this was years and years that I had been looking at this as the ideal. And when I was tempted, I would always think about this guy and man, if he could do it, I could do it, So that was just one of those things. And the third reason was that, I went to my youth pastor, and this is sequentially ordered. So then I go to my youth pastor, and I started visiting this other church, and I spoke to my youth pastor. I pulled him to the side and I said, hey, I don't feel like I'm getting the word here. I don't feel like I'm being fed, i.e. I feel like there's a lot of hypocritical figures in here, and you guys are all fake. I was just going off, and as a teenager, everything is 10 times more dramatic. And I was just like, man, I want out. I want to leave. And I wanted to see what you think about that. You know what he looked at me and said? And I quote, yo, go be fed, brother. Go get that word. Go be fed. And when I think back on it, I would have loved for him to pull me into the office and say, hey, listen, there's some people they're just going to always be like this. There's going to be church folks, there's going to be religious folks, and then there's going to be people who orient themselves to the will and the word of God. And those are the true believers, and those are the ones that you need to be paying attention to, not these other folks. And I understand your inclination to want to leave, but I feel that if you stay here, I can kind of disciple you, and mentor you in a way that would give you that word. But he didn't do any of that. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm out. So I went to this other church. Things absolutely blew up there. Did not work out. Kind of the same things in part that I caused. But anyway, I decided to leave, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave church altogether. This stuff is just not for me.